Hey there. All right, so I'll just get the obvious out of the way. Yes, I took a little bit of another break again, although it wasn't really a break. I was sick. Sorry. I got sick. My one yearly sickness that happens. Maybe I get sick like twice a year. I don't know. Something like that. So I couldn't make a video. And then for a little while after, I was like better, but still coughing. So it's like for ASMR, can't really make an ASMR video while you're coughing. So I'm better now. I'm back. And yeah, we're going to talk AI because I just feel like talking about it. I feel like, I guess I should be more specific. We're going to talk AI art. AI is being used for a lot of things, but for this video particularly, we're talking about the generation of AI artwork, traditionally in 2D, just 2D artwork. But I might touch on some other things as well. I just felt like talking about it because it's something that I care a bit about. I don't do 2D artwork. I'm not good at that. But I do 3D artwork, and I'd like to think that I'm pretty decent in terms of my artistic talent. So as far as being an artist goes, I have some vested interest in that sort of thing. And yeah, I just figured I would talk about it because I see people talking about it online, and I feel like there's obviously two sides of the argument, right? There's people that are very against it, and there's people that are very for it. I guess there is also a third faction that just doesn't care, and that probably makes up a vast majority of people. And we'll talk about that also in a little bit. But for the most part, we're going to ignore that group of people and just focus on the people that are very against it and the people that are very for it. And they both bring up good arguments, but I think a lot of the times they're not really understanding each other. So I'm going to try my best to approach the situation, logically. Just objectively, what are the facts? Whatever. Although I guess with any kind of situation like this, it's going to dip into morals, and morals are a little ambiguous because everybody has a slightly different moral compass. Things that we think that are good and bad and whatnot. There's things we can all agree on, like killing people is bad, but when it comes to more nuanced things, which this is certainly nuanced, not everyone is going to see eye to eye. So there is going to be a bit of ambiguity here, but I'd like to think that for the most part, I'm going to be presenting a very objective, viewpoint of the situation. I will put out there right off the bat that I am really mostly against AI artwork, but only from a certain perspective. But we'll get into that also. Okay, so I guess I'll just lay that out right now. Might as well get that out of the way. So as far as the technology goes, where, we have the capability to use, AI software like Stable Diffusion, for instance, that's the one that I have the most experience with. I have dabbled with these tools just because I have an interest in upcoming technology, and I do think that it is very cool. If not a little concerning, but we'll get to that also. But overall, I think the technology is cool. And my problems with, AI art generation mostly stems from the attitude that certain people, especially people that are very pro AI art generation, the attitude that they express regarding it is really my main problem with the whole situation. If you just enjoy, like I said, new technology, it is a cool up and coming technology. So if you just enjoy it for that reason, and it's just cool to mess around with, I totally understand that. And if that's where it ends for you, and it's more of just a personal thing, and it's just cool to mess around with, then I'm perfectly fine with that. we'll touch on the whole like stolen data and everything a little bit later. But, as far as that goes, I don't really have much of an issue with that. My issue arises when these people that use AI to generate artwork, when they try to enforce this idea that like they have artistic talent and that it takes like it is a skill to use AI to generate AI art. That is the part where I take issue, where it's like, no, you don't have artistic talent. It doesn't take artistic talent to prompt AI, but we'll get into that. But that's more or less my stance. If you just use it as a tool for yourself and you just use it because it's fun and it's new and it's exciting, I don't really care, because honestly, I've used it that way. But yeah, we'll get into it. So I've written down here, I have some pieces of paper down here just to try and keep myself focused, because, if you've watched my videos for any amount of time, you know that I can go off on tangents and get really lost. So to try and avoid that happening, I have written down some things on some paper down here. So if you see me looking down, it's probably because I'm reading the things that I've written down. Some bullet points to keep me focused, because I do want this video to have more of like a structure to it. It is a ramble at the end of the day. These bullet points don't tell me exactly what to say. It's not a script. But I do want it to, be more focused than maybe a typical ramble on my channel. So I've written down some like pros and cons, like the arguments that each side makes in terms of like fighting for it or fighting against it, so to speak. And I just wanted to run through them because I think, like I said, there is some truth to both sides, and there is also some like you're not really getting the point type of situation. So that's what we're going to do. So we're going to run down some of these lists. Okay, so when it comes to people that make arguments for AI artwork, these are the people that are pro AI. One of the biggest arguments I think you'll see out there is that it's, AI functions, because I guess I should preface this by saying that a lot of people who are against AI artwork are against it because, it's stolen artwork. The model, the generative model of AI is trained on thousands, maybe even tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands of pieces of artwork from other human beings. And very frequently it was, used without their consent, right? That's kind of it's one of the biggest arguments against AI. And so one of the arguments that the counter arguments that people that are pro AI have made against that is that, well, that's the way humans work, right? I mean, nothing creative exists within a vacuum. So, if I watch a movie as a kid and I'm inspired to become a filmmaker, and then I go on to make movies, those movies I make will be inspired by the movies I've watched, right? That's just how human creativity works. We all get inspired by each other, and that's just the way things work. And that is 100% true. It's undeniable. And to be fair, the AI does work pretty much identically to that, where, it takes in information and then produces, for lack of a better term, entirely new pieces of artwork. Just kind of homogenizing a lot of the different styles and stuff. So that is true. That's undeniable that it does operate similarly to how a human does get inspired, right? I do think it's important, though, to draw a distinction between inspiration and imitation. Being inspired by something is one thing. And if you take AI out of the equation, if you were an artist, let's say, and you just made carbon copies of like other famous works, like say I just painted the Mona Lisa, and it was like pretty much the exact same thing, right? It'd be like, nobody would think that that's really that incredible unless I was like a little kid or something, right? And I think a lot of people would rightfully take a bit of like, can't think of the word. Offense. That's the word. I think a lot of people would take offense to the idea that like I would be trying to build a name for myself by just piggybacking off of a lot of other popular things. I would say that what AI art does is a lot more closely related to imitation rather than inspiration. Where you see, I mean, if you go to any like AI model website, right? There's tons of checkpoints and lures and stuff that are just based on a particular person's art style. Like, oh, you really like this particular person? Well, I trained a model on all of their artwork specifically, so you can just generate stuff that looks like it was made by them, you know? And at that point, it's like, that's not inspiration. That's just imitation. Like, it's not exactly the same thing. So I do think that's important to consider. But as far as the argument goes about how AI uses artwork in the same way that a person might be inspired by other artwork, yes, I concede that that is pretty much the same way that that works. But I think it's also important to consider the idea that like, and this is just more like a semantics thing, like a language thing, I feel like, but it is important. When people talk about using AI tools to generate artwork, the credit often goes to the person that prompted the AI, but the AI is doing all of the work. And yes, there are people that will argue like, well, it's more than just prompting. Like, I'll take the image and I'll do in painting, and then I'll like take it into Photoshop and touch it up and stuff. And it's like, and we'll touch on that later. But still, it doesn't matter. The AI is doing 99.99999% of the work, right? You are not doing anything. Prompting AI is a skill in and of itself. Some people are good at it. Some people are bad at it. You can be bad at it and it will give you bad results, and you can be good at it and it will give you better results. And that's kind of another argument. I'm kind of jumping the gun here. But that's another argument that pro AI people use, where it's like, you know, I've seen a lot of people draw comparisons between, you know, painting on a canvas in real life and then like digital art. When like digital art started to become a thing, a lot of people made the same arguments that they're making now about AI. And so it's like, you know, clearly there's a parallel there, and eventually AI artwork will just be accepted as like a new form of art. But again, it's not the same thing, because you aren't the artist. The AI is the artist. If AI were to get to a point where it was treated as an equal in our society, and it was just like a person, and there were AI everywhere, and then they could make art, and then we could accept it for what it is, then that would be something different. But essentially, you're like forcing an AI to be a slave and make artwork for you. And then you're like, hey, look at this thing I made. It's like, that's not how it works, all right? The parallel between like digital art versus like real canvas painting and any type of actual physical art and like AI, it's not one-to-one. It's not. It's just a straw man argument. Sorry, hate to break it to you, but they're not the same thing. Because again, it depends on where the work is and where the skill is. Again, prompting AI is a skill, but it's a skill with a very low skill ceiling. All right. Artwork and the, you know, expression of art, no matter what it is, whether it be music, painting, you know, any form of art, filmmaking, photography, there's so many. They have technically an infinitely high skill ceiling, but you can only get so good at prompting the AI, and the AI itself can only be so good at producing artwork. So when you talk about how prompting AI is a skill in and of itself, Yes, that is true, because again, there are people that are good at it and there are people that are not good at it. Um, it's just, it has a very low skill ceiling, which just makes it less impactful when you try to use that as an argument for it being like a valid, art form, because it's not the same thing, right? Nobody's going to spend their whole life, you know, trying to get better at prompting AI until eventually they can produce their AI artwork masterpiece, That's just never going to happen. There are people that were already really good at prompting AI, like weeks, if not months after, months, if not weeks after, like generative AI artwork became a thing. Like it's not very hard to get good at it. So that's just not a good argument. Making artwork takes a ton of skill. And a big part of the reason why AI artwork has become so popular, so widespread, is because it's so easy. You can't deny it. The reason people are drawn to it, no pun intended, is because it's easy to use. It's super approachable. It takes no skill for the average person. At least the entry of skill is so low compared to learning how to draw. Like I said, I can't draw. I'm not good at drawing on 2D. 2D artwork is just not my area of expertise. And it's something I've tried to get into in the past, and it's just super hard. It's really demoralizing to stick with it if it's not something you're really focused on. If it's not something that you want really badly, you're probably just gonna fail because it's just really hard. That's just the way it is. So yeah, arguing that AI, using AI, is a skill in and of itself, and so that makes it more comparable to actually making artwork, is just not the same thing, because the skill ceiling is so incredibly low. It's so incredibly low. And that also means that there's way less potential for expression, because that's what art is. Art is expression of one's feelings and one's emotions and things like that. And when the skill ceiling is really low, that means that there's less opportunity for a person to express themselves. There's also something to be said about the fact that because the AI is the one actually making the artwork, no matter what, you're not ever really expressing anything when you use AI to generate artwork. You are not. The AI, there is an argument to be made that the AI is expressing something, but not you yourself, right? Another argument I see a lot in favor of AI artwork is that most people don't care. The average person doesn't care. They're not, the people that are really against AI is this super niche, small portion of the population that is artists, and they're just annoyed that, all of a sudden all these people can make art now, and it's it's democratized, right? Let me just be the first to point out that apathy within the general public is not ever, no matter what we're talking about, something just fucking, I don't know, I just got something in my eye. Anyway, no matter the topic, when you try to use apathy as a way to symbolize your arguments validity or moral correctness, it never works. Apathy, people are apathetic to all sorts of things, good and bad, because people are we can only focus on so many things at once. We can only acknowledge so many problems and care about so many things, right? When you read in the newspaper that some fucker got killed in a gas station because it was getting robbed or some shit, it's you probably aren't going to care as much about that as if you were called and told that your mom was dead. That's just life. You can't care equally about every little thing. And so, yes, of course, most people are going to be apathetic to the idea of AI artwork because most people aren't artists. and it's not something that affects them directly. I think a lot more people will begin to care about AI as it becomes more capable and starts to take more people's jobs. But, that hasn't quite happened yet. Right now, AI is mostly relegated to artistic things like writing and artwork. But I mean, it's only a matter of time before it starts taking other jobs like management and, stuff like that. Scheduling, whatever. And when that time comes, I think you'll start to see that general apathy of the general public start to disappear, and suddenly people will start to care more because it will start affecting them more. The reason people don't care so much about AI now in terms of AI artwork is because it doesn't affect them. I wouldn't expect them to care, right? So that's not a good argument. There are plenty of really terrible things happening around the world right now that if you were to ask the average person about, they either wouldn't even know that it's happening or they just wouldn't care because, like, what could you even be expected to do? It's like, look, it's great to theorize this world where, like, everyone cares very deeply about every injustice that's happening in the world, but that's just not real life. I'm sorry, but it's just not the way the world works. So when you try to use apathy as like a way to show, like, see, the thing we're doing is not morally corrupt because plenty of people don't even care that we're doing it. It's like, yeah, that's not how it works. I think there's also something to be said about the fact that this dips more into the whole debacle about the AI being trained on, stolen artwork, stolen data, right? A lot of art was used to train these models without the consent of the original artist. Yeah. And again, like I said, the big counterpoint to that is, well, that's how humans are inspired, right? And I agree with that, as I've already mentioned. But it's important to recognize that AI, it's funny because I feel like people are already treating AI as if it is its own entity, like it's a living being that has its own, like, whims and wishes, but it's not yet anyway. It is very much a product, and this product is being produced by big companies that are currently making tons of money and gaining in tons of investment from, super rich people and organizations and stuff. So when we talk about AI, we're not talking about some person or some particular thing. We're talking about a product being made by a company. So, I mean, when you think about it in that context, I think the moral implications of the stolen data becomes a lot worse. It's one thing to say, like, oh, AI is just being inspired like a person would be, and I agree. But then you think about it and it's like, well, this is a product, and if they hadn't stolen all of this data, the product would not work as well. Let's assume for a moment that they had to commission artwork specifically to be trained on. They would have had to, spend a lot more money developing the tool, the product, and they would have had way less data to train the model on. And these models require lots and lots of data to work. That's just how they work. So undoubtedly, the product itself would have been a lot less impressive and most likely would have not garnered nearly as much investment or general interest as it did without having stolen that data. And if your business model relies upon stealing from the general public in order to be successful, you're morally corrupt as a business, right? Like, that's just, there's no other way about it, right? I mean, it's the same thing people talk about where it's like, if Amazon as a company only thrives if it can only be successful by, borderline slave labor, then maybe it shouldn't exist. If your company, if your business relies on some like corrupt, borderline illegal practice, then maybe it shouldn't exist. And that's the same thing with AI. AI is a product, and if it wouldn't have been as successful as it is without having stolen people's data, without having stolen people's artwork, without their consent, then maybe it shouldn't exist, right? Just morally standing. That is objectively morally true. So, yeah. Let's see what else I've got on here. Another argument I've seen in favor of AI artwork is the idea that AI democratizes artwork, right? It makes it more accessible to the average person because you don't have to spend your entire life practicing this art form, this skill. You can just use AI and get pretty decent results. My big counter to that is that artwork isn't necessarily supposed to be common. I mean, that's what makes it special in the first place. The reason that we hang up the Mona Lisa in the Louvre is because it's one of a kind, right? Nobody else made that. And I mean, maybe that's a bad example because people have often cited how the Mona Lisa wasn't even really considered special for a long time until very recently or whatever. But I digress. The point is that we assign value to these things because they are rare. And the less rare they become, the less special they become. It seems plausible to me that as AI artwork becomes more and more ubiquitous in, areas of expression, those things will become a lot less special. Those areas, those communities will become a lot less, incentivized to engage with one another. Why does it matter? I mean, like, I could prompt the AI the same way you can and get the same shit you do. Like, why would I share this, right? I think that AI artwork represents a complete abandonment of the intention of art in the first place, if that makes sense, where it represents our ability as human beings to communicate in ways other than just words. And this is kind of a topic for much further in the future. Like I said, I think people already treat AI like it's alive and it has its own, like it is its own being. And eventually it will get to that point. But no matter what, AI will never be human, right? There will come a day when computers are alive. Like, just the definition of what a living being is, computers will fall into that definition, and they will have to be, at that point, considered living beings. We will get to that point eventually, but at no point in the future will AI ever be able to be considered human. It just never will. It's fundamentally impossible. I think people really like to consider the idea that, like, there's something special about life in general. And I just don't necessarily believe that that's true. But I absolutely believe that there is something special about being human. And like I said, a big part of why we make art in the first place is because we're human, because it's fun, and it's fun to share things that we've made with other people. And again, it's a way to communicate, right? We're very social animals. It's just what we do. And so when AI comes in and it kind of robs us of that by just oversaturating, the market, if you will. I can't think of a better word than that. it just kind of ruins the whole vibe, right? And I would consider that to be morally reprehensible, because at that point, that's a highly negative thing, right? In the same way that killing a person is, robbing their family of that individual, and anyone that likes that person, like it is an abandonment of that person's freedom to live and exist. I think AI similarly is, robbing humanity of a reason to make art in the first place. Now, does any of it matter? Yeah, I do think it matters. Again, I understand that most people don't care, because most people aren't artistically inclined. And I think that's also a big part of why it's become as big as it has, in terms of I'm sure 99% of people still don't use AI art, right? At least not willingly. It's still fairly niche, but if you go to any platform, any website that shares artwork, it's just a cluster. A lot of websites have relegated AI to either an entirely different website or a different section. You can flag it and then blacklist it and stuff like that. And it's crazy that that's become such a necessity, because there's so much of it. And there's so much of it because it's impossible to compete with the scale of AI, right? It takes AI a couple seconds to generate an image, whereas it would take an artist, hours to create a similar piece, right? So it's just not possible for a human being, even collectively human beings, to compete with AI. It's just not possible. And that's a shame, I think when you really take a step back and look at the situation as a whole, you have to realize that there is something undeniably sad about the idea that this thing that people created is no longer for people anymore. It's it's been taken from us. I think that's sad. Yeah. I also hear the argument a lot in favor of AI that artists are just jealous. They're just jealous that, they don't have this thing that they could, they can't compete, or they're just mad because their art isn't as good as AI artwork. And I guess in that particular argument, I have to be thankful that at this point in the timeline of AI development, my personal artistic expression being 3D modeling and 3D artwork, there has yet to be an AI model that can produce 3D artwork at a high level. I think NVIDIA just released something not too long ago that works in the same way as all these other things like Stable Diffusion, where you type in a prompt and it does generate a 3D model. But it's very much in its infancy. It's not very good, and it won't be taking our jobs. I say anytime soon, but the development on this stuff is super fast, so who really knows how long it'll be before, inevitably it's going to happen. There will be an AI model that can produce high quality 3D models. It's just inevitable. But as of right now, that doesn't exist. So I have to be grateful that, that doesn't exist, that there isn't some robot that can just do stuff better than me. And certainly, I'm sure for a lot of 2D artists, there's probably going to be plenty of artists, 2D artists that, they probably do feel that way, that it is annoying that, they've dedicated a large portion of their time to trying to learn the skill of 2D art creation, whether it be digital or painting or drawing or whatever. And then AI comes along and just does better than them. But I don't really understand how that could possibly be used as an argument for AI to just like suddenly be morally like, how is that an argument? That's not an argument. Yeah, people can get jealous. It doesn't matter. It doesn't mean that they're wrong. And there's plenty of people that are going to be able to produce artwork that is far better than anything AI can make currently. Again, I do think it is somewhat inevitable that eventually AI art is just going to become too good. I mean, it's at the point now where it's pretty good, to the point where most people probably wouldn't be able to tell at a glance. Like your average, if you know what to look for, you can detect AI art pretty easily. But the average person, the average Joe out there, it's pretty clear that they have a lot harder of a time discerning what is AI. And I think there's also just a lot of people out there that don't even realize that it's like a capability we have, so they don't even know to look for it in the first place, which is kind of interesting in and of itself. It just goes to show how fast this technology has been developed. But I kind of lost my train of thought there. Oh, I was saying that's where AI is at right now, right? Where it's pretty clear to those of us who can discern it, but to most people, it's good enough that they won't notice. I think it will get to a point where it's just undecipherable, even to the most like trained of individuals. The people that know what to look for the most. I think it will get to a point where it's just you're not able to tell. And I guess I just have to express that I'm glad we're not at that point yet, but it is a bit concerning to know that we will likely get there potentially soon. Who knows? It has gotten better at an incredible rate. And I think that's also something to point out. All of these people that really stand up for AI, it's a bit strange to me because, again, the AI isn't yours. And when you use the AI tool to produce an image, you didn't make it, and it wasn't you played relatively no role in the creation of that piece, right? Yes, you prompted the AI. But I mean, let's just look at like the process. I mean, what, you're going to go to a website and download a model, download a LoRa, whatever. And then, I mean, chances are you're probably going to use someone else's prompt as like a starting point for your own prompt. Like you're just copying everything along the way. I digress. The point I'm trying to make is that when people stand up for AI as if it's like, if like we were to suddenly take away AI, it'd be like, you're taking it from me. It's like, no, we'd be taking it from these companies, right? Like when you stand up vehemently for AI, you're not standing up for like yourself. You're shilling for a massive corporation that's valued at, billions of dollars, because so many of these companies are trying their absolute hardest. I mean, all of the big tech companies right now, Google, Apple, Microsoft, you've got OpenAI, which is specifically doing AI. And then you've got other countries like China that are working on their own AI stuff. That's who you're benefiting. Like, you're not, I find it weird that, and I think this kind of goes hand in hand with the whole like democratization of art argument, which is like they see AI tools like Stable Diffusion as, you know, like it's for the people, but it's like, no, it's not for the people. It's for the corporations. They're the ones that are going to benefit from all of this shit being produced. Like, you don't get jack shit out of it. And look, if you find joy out of, you know, generating artwork using AI, then nobody can take that from you. But it's not the same thing. Like, you don't benefit from it nearly as much financially, obviously, as these massive corporations. So when you like you're just shilling for this huge billion-dollar, trillion-dollar corporation. So I just find that weird. I'm a pretty anti-corporation type of guy personally. I just you know, especially like I said, going back a little bit, talking about like Amazon and whatnot. I mean, every corporation does it. I don't think you can get to the size of some of these corporations without, you know, doing some morally corrupt business practices, right? So that is what it is. But yeah, I guess some minor points I just want to point out before I end this video. I don't know how long this has been going on. I think it's been going on for quite a while. I just want to really drive home that when people use AI tools to acquire, I think we need to really, you know, carefully pick our verbiage when we talk about AI. You know, people say, oh, I used AI to make art. No, you used AI to acquire art. There is a difference, and I think it's important to make that difference verbally, so that we're all on the same page of the conversation, right? But yes, there is no difference between using AI to acquire art and commissioning a human artist to acquire art. They are literally, and I'm using literally in the actual definition of the word, they are literally the same thing. You are asking of an artist to receive artwork. The only difference between the two situations is that using AI is pretty much free. I mean, there is an energy cost associated with running AI things, and it actually can be fairly high depending on exactly what you're doing. But at the end of the day, it's going to pale in comparison to the cost that would be associated with consistently commissioning an artist on the scale that people use AI, right? Yeah. So when people say like, oh, I used AI to make something, it's like, no, you didn't. You didn't do that. You used AI to acquire something. It is very different because, again, language is very important. And subconsciously, when people hear people talk about, oh, I used AI to make something, subconsciously they're going to think, okay, so that person made it. And this kind of goes hand in hand with what I was saying earlier about how when people use AI to you know, acquire art, they do so with like the intention of being like, hey, I made this. Look, the accommodation is on me, when it really should be on the tool. The AI is the one that made the work. You didn't do jack shit. You typed in some words. Maybe, again, like I said, a lot of people are going to share prompts and use certain prompts as like a starting point and tweak stuff to get what they want. But it's very easy to just steal. I mean, on these websites where you can share AI art, there's you can just copy all of the metadata, which copies the prompt, the positive prompt, the negative prompt, and all of the sliders for like image size, and like I think it's called CFG or whatever, that just like dictates how closely the image generation follows the prompts and stuff like that, and the sampler and everything. Just like with one click, you can just copy someone else's prompt, like not just the prompt, but like literally everything they use to generate the image, and then you can generate the exact same image. And then that's something like if that's close to what you want, you can just start tweaking stuff, but like very small. It's the whole like workflow, if you even want to call it that, surrounding AI is just very much built upon this idea of like, I'm just going to copy someone else. And again, it goes back to imitation versus inspiration. Pretty much everything AI is much more closely related to imitation rather than inspiration. I will also go out and say, I kind of touched on this at the very beginning of the video, which was like, if you just do this for yourself and you find joy in it and you think it's cool because it's a new upcoming technology and stuff like that, that's perfectly fine. I mean, again, no one's going to stop you. I mean, you're not really even hurting anyone at that point. There's something to be said about the fact that you wouldn't have the capability to do that if the AI hadn't been trained on that stolen data. And again, obviously the corporations that have stolen that data benefit a lot from that. It's already been done. We can't go back, unfortunately. But overall, I'm relatively okay with that. But if you're someone that produces, again, it's hard to like even talk about it myself without being more careful. If you're someone that acquires artwork from AI and then like sells it, or whatever, if you make money from it, I would argue that that's completely morally corrupt, that you have absolutely no leg to stand on in that situation, because you are benefiting from it beyond just like personal satisfaction. Like, and at that point you could actually be robbing an actual artist of a potential client by selling your artwork instead, and potentially taking their customers. And I think that's wrong, because again, you didn't do anything. You don't have talent. I just want that to be clear as well. Anyone that uses AI to acquire artwork has no artistic talent. I mean, that's not to say that that person can't have artistic talent. I think almost anyone can have artistic talent if they try hard enough. But if you use AI to acquire artwork because you can't produce it on your own, you have no talent. Using AI isn't a talent. And it isn't representative of talent either. You can't show someone a piece of AI art and be like, look at how talented I am. It's like, it doesn't work that way. You aren't talented at all. So yeah, it's very annoying to see people that very vehemently defend AI artwork, because you can tell that to them it's something that gives them validation, right? Like finally I can pretend to be an artist like I've always wanted to be. Like, no, you're not an artist. You can download stuff off the internet, so that's cool, but you don't have artistic talent. Again, you can learn it. I'm not saying that anyone that uses AI will never be an artist or never have talent, because obviously that's not true. I think, like I said, almost literally anyone can be artistically talented at something. And when it comes to art, beauty is in the eye of the beholder type of shit, where it's like, even if what you make could be classified by many as garbage, to some it may be absolutely beautiful, right? So it all just depends. It's all perspective. But one thing that is certainly undeniable is that if you use AI as a way to express that you are talented, you're only kidding yourself. No one actually like supports you. No one actually is impressed by that, and it's embarrassing. But yeah, those are just some of my thoughts on AI and the whole like AI discussion. Again, my stance is obviously pretty negative in terms of like I'm very against AI artwork, I guess I should say. I don't think that every single argument used against AI is used necessarily in good faith or like used in an exceptionally like productive manner, but yeah, that being said, I just can't support AI artwork, because it's not made by a person. When I say I can't support AI artwork, what I mean is I can't support people who present it as something, as their own accomplishment, right? I don't support that person. The AI itself is pretty cool. It is admittedly quite cool that we live in a period of human history where you can just type something into a computer and then get a result. Like, that's crazy. But yeah, when it comes to the end user, anyone that produces something using AI, acquires something using AI, it's never impressive. Not only are you standing on the shoulder of artistic giants, but you're also standing on the shoulder of, engineering giants, the people that actually created the model in the first place, the computer engineers that have made this AI, like, you have done nothing throughout the entire process. You were given a tool by genius computer engineers, and that tool was given its talent by stealing from thousands of extremely talented artists, and then you, with no talent, just get to use it. So that's just the way it is. Anyway, this video has been pretty long, so I think we're going to end it there. Thanks for watching. If you have any of your own opinions about AI artwork, leave a comment. I'd love to read them. And yeah, like I said, it's good to be back. I was sick. Hopefully you enjoyed this video. It's a ramble. It's a return to form for the channel. It's been a little while since I've done a ramble, because even since I returned, I've done mostly like tapping stuff. So anyway, hopefully you enjoyed. And until next time, I'll catch you later.